Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name Talitha Salsabila. My ID student number 193200083. So in this video, I will give presentation about floating maxim conversation analysis on comedy show Lapor Pak. This conversation was taken from the TV show Lapor Pak with the title Jennifer Ipel dan Ajun Perwira diduga jadi pelaku investasi bodong. There are several actors, namely Andika, Wendy, Surya, Ayu Ting Ting, Jennifer in this show. It was discussed about Mujair fee scam investment. The first, let me explain the definition of cooperative principle. The cooperative principle is a principle between speaker and interlocutors in a conversation, normally attempt to be informative, truthful, relevant, and clear. The principle of cooperation is divided into four maxims, namely, first, maxim quantity, second, maxim of quality, third, maxim of relevance, and the last, maxim of manner. Then, what is a floating maxims? The floating maxims, atau yang kita kenal dengan pelanggaran maxims, occurs when the speaker does not adhere to the cooperative principle but expects the speaker to understand the implied meaning of his utterance. Humor and language cannot be separate one another because both of them are in one unity dalam satu kesatuan. Humor is an important aspect of communication through language in order to make communication more relaxed. As a result, in order to make the conversation more enjoyable, people occasionally make jokes at each other during the conversation. Therefore, people often break the rule of cooperative principles by floating the maxims. The first, let's analyze floating of the maxim quantity. Occurs when the speech participant provides information that is less or more than what is needed by his interlocutor. Jadi, pelanggaran maksim ini terjadi ketika lawan bicara memberikan informasi yang tidak secukupnya. Next, let's reanalyze the conversation.
Nih udah ketangkep nih pelaku investasi bodongnya.
Oh ya?
Apa?
Investasi bodong?
Gak ada gue investasi bodong, berondong.
So, in this conversation, there was a floating of maxim quantity. Because Jennifer provide more information that was not as needed with the utterance. Gak ada gue investasi bodong, berondong. Gila ya, yang jelas-jelas aja dong. But Andika understand her utterance in the form of jokes. It is shown by giving a play on the word, atau yang kita tahu dengan plesetan kata, pada bodong become berondong. There's a funny effect because of play on words atau plesetan kata that show an exaggerate sentence to create a funny effect. The audience laughed that was a sign they understood the joke the two of them mean. Next, the second analysis.
Bibit doang.
Oke.
Bebet bobot enggak?
Oke.
Iya.
10 juta.
Iya.
Yang kedua 50 juta.
50 juta.
Dapat bibit, bebet, bobot, sama akte kelahiran. Yang ketiga dapat semua, plus dapat BPJS sama asuransi pendidikan sampai kuliah.
In this conversation, there is a floating of maxim quantity because Andika answered by providing information that was not as needed too much in the form of jokes with utterance. Yang kedua 50 juta, dapat bibit, bobot, bebet, sama akta kelahiran. Yang ketiga dapat semua plus dapat BCBS sama asuransi pendidikan sampai kuliah. The word that used is a hyperbole or exaggerate sentence in the context of bibit ikan mujair to create a funny effect. Here, Surya already understand Andika respond in the form of ikan mujair jokes, and everyone laughed. That is a sign that they understand the relationship between the two of them. Then, we move to analyze maxim of quality. Floating of the maxim quality occurs when participants say something that is not in accordance with the facts and evidence. Jadi pelanggaran ini terjadi karena berbohong atau tidak sesuai fakta. Next, in this conversation, there is a floating of the maxim of quality.
Kebetulan saya lagi ada rezeki.
Enggak usah.
Gak apa-apa.
Ayo, Ma.
because the speaker does not tell the truth and says something the truth has not been proven. Here it shows that Wendy felt reluctant to refuse, first by the utterance, "Gak usah repot-repot," padahal ia sambil memegang uang yang diberikan. Actually, he want the money, to finally end with Wendy accepting the money that Ayu gave him. This case, Ayu already understand Wendy's response because he feels reluctant atau sungkan, sehingga dia melakukan small talk semacam basa-basi to be polite dalam hal budaya kesopanan. This has a funny effect because this utterance and everyone laugh. That is a sign they understand the joke relationship the two of them mean. Next, in this conversation, there is a floating of the maxim of quality.
Saya mau berbagi aja.
Yuk, ya ilah, duit segini doang. Kan gue juga udah ada gaji.
Ya Allah,
Nah
baiknya
itu
Pak
Wendy tuh, anaknya gitu.
So, in this conversation, there is a floating maxim of quality, because the speaker does not tell the truth and says something the truth has not been proven. In this case, Wendy refused money first to be polite because he already has his own salary even though he is just small talk. But in fact, he wants the money given until he finally accepted Ayu's money by the utterance, "Yo ilah duit segini doang, kan gue juga udah ada gaji." Padahal ia sambil menerima uang yang diberikan. Ayu already understand Wendy answer because Wendy feels hesitate atau sungkan sehingga ia melakukan small talk basa-basi. This has a funny effect because Wendy utterance and the audience laugh. That is a sign they understand the joke relationship that two of them mean. The last analysis about floating of the maxim relevance. This occurs when the speech participant provides information that is not appropriate or not relevant to the topic conversation. Jadi di sini adanya pelanggaran karena tuturan yang tidak relevan. In this first conversation, there is a floating of the maxim relevant.
Selamat sore Pak Wendy, Pak Surya yang ganteng. Pak Surya, Pak Wendy, ini juga saya udah siapin kopi. Ini beli kebetulan, saya nggak bikin.
Because he answered irrelevant outside the context of Ayu's statement by the utterance, "Oh, beli." But Ayu understand that the context of buying because he has already prepared coffee. There, everyone laughed, showing that they understood the joke's connection. This gave a funny effect on the audience because waiters Ayu was able to buy coffee with her own money, which was actually her job to make coffee. Next, in the second analysis,
Kasih lagi nggak? Lu mau minjemin?
Apaan sih?
in this conversation, there is a floating of the maxim relevant because he speaks irrelevant outside the context of Gilang question. When he offers to give money which Wendy should have answered a question between yes or no, but instead he acts back out of the context by the utterance, "Emang lu mau minjemin?" In this case, Gilang already understand Wendy answer whether he wants to lend the money to Wendy in the form satire, sindiran, "Emang lu mau minjemin?" Seakan ia tidak mampu untuk meminjamkan uangnya. There, everyone laughs, showing the understand the joke's relationship. This gives a funny effect on the audience because when they answer in the form of satire with humor, yaitu sindiran dalam bentuk humor. Next, in the last example,
Sekarang kan lagi banyak yang investasi bodong-bodong.
Udah dah,
gitu.
jangan pada suka
Itu
nasihatin
mah yang
saya, duit mah
aneh-aneh
pada
aplikasi.
nerima,
Kalau ini mah investasi udah lama.
in this conversation, there was a floating of relevance because he was answered outside the context of the discussion. This shows irrelevant in a conversation where Ayu answer outside the context investing by evading because he doesn't want to be advised by discussing money that she gave. This evidence by the utterance, "Udah, jangan pada nasehatin saya, kasih uang aja diterima aja tuh." But when he already understand Ayu answer because he does not want to be advised dan adanya efek humor sindiran jika ia diberi uang ya diterima aja. There, everyone laughs showing they understood the joke's relationship. This gave a funny effect on the audience because when his answer was in the form of satire with humor. The last, we move to the conclusion. The following analysis is a several list of floating maxims that appear in the comedy program Lapor, Pak. The results show there is no floating maxims of relevant. The floating maxims of quantity and the floating maxims of relevant appear more often than the other, and it succeeds to make the audience laugh, which means some characters in the show are irrelevant and deliberately give too much or too little information during the conversation. To give the humorous effects, the background and audience laughing in this comedy TV show supported the evidence that the situation when one of the characters floated the maxim was in funny situation. Even if there were some floated maxim, it made the conversation lively and friendly. Thus, sometimes the floated maxims also cause the humorous effect. Okay, thank you for your attention. I think it's enough. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.